The file you are about to hear has been thoroughly scrutinized by the Ethics Committee and approved by the O5 Council for release to trusted associates of the Foundation. This is SCP Unredacted. No longer was I content with living in this world, and that simply shall not be. I am not above admitting I was shaken. This was wrong, imperfect. For the first time I can recall, I felt fear overwhelm me. I ran. The destination was irrelevant. Reality built itself in front of me and collapses the minute I take my foot off the ground. There was no thought, no design, just instinct. Masterpieces of architecture give way to crumbling brick towers until all that conjures up are barely coherent shapes and shadows trying to emulate the real. An abstract path of shapes and patterns, not entirely unlike the corporeal world, struggles to keep up with me as I desperately try to escape my own mind. I do not know how long I was running. It may have been a minute. It may have been an eternity. I stop at the feet of a half-formed castle towering over me. Incomplete. Struggled to form a monument in my image, but for the first time I can recall, I cannot decide. Waves of matter oscillated in and out of existence as the structure warped and folded to fit an image that didn't exist. I couldn't make it perfect. I couldn't make it at all. Cautiously, I take a step into the accursed structure. It is a skyscraper, allowing me to survey the glitching fields for miles about. It is a dank dungeon, hundreds of meters underground from sunlight's reach. It is a castle, a minka, a dacha, a cathedral, and everything in between. The stone beneath my feet stays stable as the building fluxes between the real and irreal, desperate to answer a question that was never asked. And then there is a face. At the center of all of it, there is a face. It stares at me. I wander, and its eyes follow me. It is barely a face, more an abstract mess of shapes and colors, blending and mixing in and out of existence. But the weight of two eyes that stare at me is suffocating, pressing down upon my very being. I wish for it to be gone, and yet it remains. I rush away from it, deeper into the rapidly shifting labyrinth, and yet it remains. I run down a pulsating corridor to escape, and yet it remains, staring from a distance. This isn't a simulacrum. It does not listen to me, and it has such weight, such being. I feel an eternity of life and experience and suffering bore into the back of my skull. This is a person, and they are wrong. With shaking legs, I walk towards it. One step. It stares. 2 steps. It stares. I inch towards it until there is no room left for me to stall and no room left for it to give. The castle ceases to shift, and we are in a prison, brutalist and functional in its design. The unperson looks at me, and I look back. Without words or thoughts, it says so much. It conveys anguish, pain, feelings I do not have words for, and words I cannot accurately recall. I imagine 1,000 lifetimes of sorrow and agony, an existence divorced from the singularity, and I remember them all as if they were my own. Tears well in my eyes as I live the unlife this soul has suffered through as I reach towards it in sympathy. It screeches. It screams, a cry of static and white noise, deafeningly loud. The sound fills my every thought as the prison around us dissolves into a black void. I desperately offer help. I beg of it, plead with it, to see any reason at all. It just stares at me and lets out its screech that shakes me to my very core. I apologize. I'm sorry for it. For myself. For forcing such an imperfect being to live in a perfect world. For it to see heaven, and for it to be just barely out of reach. I'm sorry for existing, for ever allowing a world where it suffers as it does, and I live as I do. It does not forgive. It does not forget. It screams, and the static overwhelms me. I fade out, and there is nothing. An eternity passes, and I am again. Glowing green grass ebbs and flows around a collapsed pile of rocks in an endless expanse. A reality that allows that from before to exist can never be perfect. It can never be right. I pull myself to my feet and look into infinity. Something is inherently wrong about this. What I am should never have been. I am filled with a single purpose. I must find answers. But first, I must find the questions.
Thank you for listening. If you like what you hear, join my Discord community, hire me on Fiverr, or help support me by becoming a patron for as little as $3 a month. Regardless of tier, all patrons get early access to every single episode. The links are in the description. I don't have the talent it takes to write a skip. All I do is read. Original authors make this podcast possible, so credit to the original author. Their links in the description. Show them some love as well. Consider becoming a member of the SCP Wiki. Upvote their work, and maybe write a skip of your own. Maybe I'll read it here someday. You never know if you never try. The content of this podcast and content relating to the SCP Foundation, including the SCP Foundation logo, is licensed under Creative Commons Sharealike 3.0, and all concepts originate from scpwiki.com and its authors. This recording, being derived from this content, is hereby also released under Creative Commons Sharealike 3.0.